Peace, everyone. Greetings. Welcome to another Sovereign Eats podcast. It is an evening build. All right. Well, it's a nighttime build. um, this evening, we're going to explore healing, right? And in our last podcast, one of the things we did was we took a look at veganism and also took a look at plant-based lifestyle, right? Because the idea is to explore definitions and explore a lot of the slang and the conversations and the talks that everyone's having around healing and optimum health and wellness. And sometimes we throw around words so much, and in throwing around those words, we don't really get to explore what they mean and how they relate to our lives, how they relate to our journey. So, part of this evening's build, along with all of the other builds, including those that will be coming up with my co-host, we again will be just digging into the meaning of and definitions of some of these phrases and terms that we hear all the time. All right. This evening's focus is healing. And I thought healing would be a great place to continue the build, not to start, to continue, because, this is the season for us to, recover, right? It has been a long year, and many people go into hibernation mode around this time, right? This is the time where you pull back a little bit and you engage in a lot of reflection and a lot of thinking about what has happened throughout the year and what has gotten accomplished, what has not been accomplished, and how you're going to move forward. And I thought healing is a great place to start, well, to continue our conversation, because this idea of healing is to repair, right? Healing, when we think about healing, it's to repair and it's to get us back to a place where our tissue is functioning again at optimum, or wounds are healed, or they're getting to a place where they're transforming back to regular function, normal function. So it's really critical to think about healing and all of the different concepts of healing and all of the different modalities of healing. This evening, I wanted to actually, so the original title of this podcast presentation was actually going to be healing modalities. And I said, well, why would you just stick yourself inside of this one little box? Allow for the expansion, allow for, of course, I am female, so what expansion? I can only, make more of what has been given to me or expounded upon, all right, by my mate or my covering on my head. So yeah, I won't really expand anything, but I can add and make more. And so, the idea of using this space as an opportunity to, just create a communal space for women who are covered, women who are managing homesteads, women who are, juggling, and not juggling alone, because they have leadership, they have that head leading them, they have husband, mate, and some form of leadership in the form of a man leading them. It's really important because I think many of us are looking for that. We're looking for a space, a hub, a place where we can build and explore healing modalities, explore optimum health and wellness, and what that looks like in a functioning family, right? In a wholesome, good functioning family. So yeah, this is what this space is. And we'll continue to be that, whether we're going live or we're doing a podcast and you're just listening, and you're not necessarily live with us engaging. There will always be that opportunity for you to be able to connect with other sisters, other women, and men as well who are functioning in families and balance, and they're part of a community right here in the sovereign space. All right. So, yeah, let's just jump in. We hear a lot about healing, we hear a lot about holistic health and holistic healing. And I think we hear holistic, and many times people associate it with or connect it to whole or what is wholesome. And when you think about healing, as I said earlier, healing literally, when you look at the etymology and the breakdown of the word, you're really looking at a word that focuses on repair. I just thought there, like I looked at many ideas around what healing is. And again, I know nothing. What I do is I am able to receive knowledge, and in applying that knowledge, I'm able to get or gain wisdom, right? Wisdom reveals herself to me. And like I have to appreciate the application. I have to appreciate taking the knowledge that I have and applying it and getting to know what it means for my own journey and my own life. That's why I'm able to speak to you all, right? And just share. So, yeah, when we talk about healing, we're talking about repair, right? Repairing tissues, repairing wounds, strengthening the body back to a place where it can function at its optimum, right? And not just the body, but the mind and the spirit, all right? And I know our very first conversation, community conversation for this season, delved into mind, body, spirit, and we talked about the reflection of the soul. So I really think it's really important as we talk about healing that we understand that healing takes place on all of these levels or layers of who we are, and it doesn't just function within the body. All right. And in many cases, depending on who you speak to, and depending on the level of conversation that you're having, um, we will go as far as to say that that healing begins prior to it physically happening in the body. And if you think about it, and you think about how spirit works, and you think about the fact that spirit needs a body, you think about the way thoughts in and function and emotion influences the way the body functions as well. That doesn't mean that the body doesn't have its functionality, um, that is independent of thought, right? But at the same time, there is that involuntary mechanism that's happening in our bodies, and many of the time, a lot of the time, what we'll find is that it's either a subconscious mind that's programming some of our functions. And I think that's a crucial thing to think about too, because if it's subconscious, then it is a programming, then it is a thought. Somebody put that thought there. And if somebody put that thought there, then you have to kind of explore it, and you have to say, where did it come from? Um, and how is it affecting my functionality? Is it supporting my healing, or is it detrimental to my healing? Is it putting me in a place where I'm constantly finding that my immune system is compromised, that I'm constantly feeling sick or low or down or diminished? I'll just take a pause, and this is a focus build, but it's also a little bit free. Free in that I'm learning how to interject some of the stories and some of the experiences that I have, because many times I do. I guess people learn from them, and people love stories. I know. Greetings, Sister Yafe. Greetings, Aki, El Karar. Thank you all for jumping in and joining into the space. Feel free to ask questions if you want to come on in and ask a question on air live. That's fine too. I won't hold everyone to like to get on, because I do know, like, it's 10:20. It's So the conversation might be a little bit different. But today, I work with youth during the day. And today, one of the students, I could see during our lesson, I can see that there was a clear shift and change in his mood, his functionality, his mannerisms. And I didn't have to ask him if something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. And he has gained trust in me to the point where I can say, do this or go do these two things. And he'll go do them because he knows that I'm paying keen attention to how he's moving and functioning so that I am, like always responsive and I know how to intervene when I know something is wrong. It's not very easy to do with adults. Yeah, but it is very easy to do with youth. And all I said to him was, I said to him, take a restroom break and have yourself some cold water. And I know we're like, we're not advocates for drinking cold water all the time, but there are times when it is a healing modality. Just like raw food is a healing modality. Nobody's saying eat raw food for the rest of your life. It's a healing modality. Nobody's saying to him, drink cold water every day for the rest of your life. No one's saying that. The same is true for cold baths. No one is saying take cold baths every single day. No, your nerves will be shot. Yeah, I want to say more about being shot for sure. But yeah, your nerves will be shot. So the idea of healing, and as we're talking about healing, it's really important to think about healing modality. All right. But I digress. So the story that I gave is actually helpful because it helps us to understand how our bodies become influenced by subtle frequency, subtle energy, subtle vibration. Sorry, my eyes just went wide. I have no idea why. Heat, cooling, temperature changes is what I should say. I was about to go down the list, but temperature changes. Also, the types of visuals that we engage in can prevent us from healing properly. All right. It can actually cause for our immune system function to persist, for our mental state to be unstable. All right. And so this is what actually happened to this student who I spoke of a couple of minutes ago. Right. I noticed that the heat temperature in the room changed. That may have affected him, but I also knew that he was distracted, and I can tell that he felt extremely uncomfortable in the space. However, it was not because of the students in the space, but I later found out it was a mental thing. It was his mind. And again, we have to build trust. When we build trust, we're able to become clean and be able to clearly share with those around us who want to help us what's happening so that they can actually truly steer us and help us. And so with that student, I actually had an intervention. Once the other students were dismissed, we had a one-on-one moment where he sat on a yoga ball and we were able to talk through what he was feeling. He said he didn't want to speak about it, but I eventually got him to say that he said that it was his mind. He said that he became so fearful of the space, not the people in the space, but thoughts encroached this child's mind to the point where he felt unsafe and he began to feel, and he was clear. He was clear that he was not anxious. He said it wasn't anxiety. I wasn't feeling anxious. But he said my heart was really racing fast and I got scared. I became very afraid, right? He said he had a thought and that thought made him so afraid he thought it was real. All right. So there were a couple of things that like I won't go into the details of what we shared, but we did work on meditation and breathing in that moment. But we also spoke about some of the other films and movies that he looks at in the evening and at the nighttime, uh, during the nighttime, and also some of the books that he reads. All right, because again, what we read, what we take in through music and sound, television, all of these things encroach on our mental space. They take over our thoughts. A matter of fact, depending on how strong they are, they can replace our thoughts. And that's not a bad thing. It's a healing modality. But if you don't control what those thoughts are, you don't control what the programming is, then you can't control the behavior. So then healing can take place. All right. So again, that story was to get us to a place where, like we can really see how our mind can become affected by even thoughts that have been placed in there moons ago, many moons ago, or maybe not just moons ago, maybe hours ago. That's why it's so dangerous to fall asleep with the YouTube going, right? If you have not programmed it to play a certain type of music or to play specific items that will not encroach on your thinking. All right, because many times when we listen to brainwave music and different hertz and frequencies, sometimes it affects us immediately. However, when you think about binaural beats and you study it, you realize that some of it takes shifts and takes place hours after. So you're working and building up to what is just like conditioning the body when you're preparing it for a challenge. Or when you're preparing it for a challenge, you have to go through all of these processes of building toward something over time. And so sometimes it takes a while for it to set in, and then you're listening to this thing while you're sleeping, and then you get up in the dawning and you don't realize that it's affecting how you function throughout the day. All right. Uh, so on screen you see Load the Scholar. His name is El Karar. So Aki El Karar says, I agree with you on that. Thus, I don't watch the news in that sense. Challenge. Yes, challenge. We all on that challenge board. By the way, I am sipping some turmeric, just straight turmeric with maple. I really like turmeric these days, actually. Turmeric is so comforting, I would say, for me. So I really appreciate it. I want to pause really quickly. Can you all hear me above the music? This is my second time trying the music feature here, and I wanted to make sure that the music wasn't too loud. But I actually wanted to experiment with how it sounded. So just give me your feedback. Tell me if you like it. And for those of you who are listening and coming on into the space, jump in the comment section and tell me, Sister Maria, nah, that music is not kicking. Do not do it again. um, or you could say, yeah, it's good music, but maybe I have some better music for you that we could share. But if it's too overpowering, it's too much, let me know. All right. Greetings and peace. Welcome to the late night session. Chief Yuya. Thank you very much for letting me know that you can hear me. Okay, thank you. All right, that's nice with the lighting. And yeah, man, we could spice it up and do things a little bit different. And not every now and again, as much as possible. I mean, I won't have melons and glitter in here at all. At all. You'll never see that on here. But yeah, thank you all for sharing and letting me know. Yeah, I really turned it down very low, right? Because sometimes the with the crescendo and some of the other variations in sound, the music can take over. So I turned it down just so that there's just enough. um all right, so let's just keep building. So for those of you who heard the story that I shared about the young man and his expression of feeling that shift and change, and I thought that was so powerful because even with us as adults, we shift and change many times, and sometimes we don't know why our mood changes. Um, but I think it's really important to also know who's in the room with you, and if you're a part of a community, who is in your community, because many times it's that, right? It can be another person that shifts or changes the mood. And they may not know it, right? They may not know it. I know personally, there are times that I have been so uh, deep in my own thoughts. Um, and that's what brings a disconnect, right? That's what brings disconnection, and it really pulls away from that progress, that healing, or that repair that healing is supposed to bring to us. Because when we begin to disconnect from others, because harmony and peace, you know, I learned a long time ago that peace is a natural state. We go in and out of states of peace, right? Because we allow for an experience, an exchange, or something we hear, or maybe even programming that we cannot control to begin to affect us. All right, we allow it, right? And there are times, I will say, when we can't control it, right? Because maybe we listened to something an hour ago and now it's kicking in, right? It's like drugs. Trust me. The body is amazing the way it works. And so it's so important to pay attention to all of the different healing modalities that are available to us and the way those affect us, right? Um, but yeah, when we think about that repair, when we think about that repair, I you know, in the idea or the concept of healing, it's really important because it's almost like it's working like the idea of peace being our natural state, right? And so it's almost like when you think about a scale and you leave the scale or those teeter totter, um, what do you call it, balance things, right? People use them for focus and other things like that. Um, there's a natural state where they're just kind of like in balance, right? Or they're balanced. And something happens in the environment, maybe even it's just like it could be a gust of wind, but it doesn't even have to be. It could be literally a person moving from one side of the room to the next, and literally seesaw. But there's a specific name for those. Um, though they're like elite, very classical looking, professional looking, sleek silver models. They're just pretty. They're literally a seesaw. I agree, but there's a nice name for it. I can't remember. You know, um, but someone just moving in a room from one place to the other is enough to shift the molecular, the molecular matter that's in the space, and that then begins to affect the equilibrium of that thing, because it's so responsive to subtle changes in movement, right, and frequency. And our bodies are the same way. Our bodies are the same way. So it's really, I think it's really it really helps us when we kind of shift into a space where we begin to think about how we interact with our environment. And the point I was making earlier was that, you know, you become very disconnected when you're so focused on your own thought and deep in things that's happening with you, and you're so focused on, oh my gosh, I messed this up, and it literally unhinges you from the environment and that harmonious space and that peace. All right. And I remember um, Chief Yuya is he offers direction in my journey, and in my life. And I say that because when I opened and all of the season, all I want the women and sisters who tune in, I want them to know that this is a space where you can feel comfortable. Feel comfortable knowing that yes, you're mated, you're covered, you have a family, and you're in a space where that is honored and respected. All right. So you could kick back and relax and know that you're not, this is not a person speaking to you just wild from nowhere with no direction. It's there. And so I made that point to say a couple strongs ago, I actually got on. We normally have a Shima or a Anu fellowship build on Yam Shishi. Yam Shishi is Friday evenings. And we were talking about women needing direction. And one of the things Chief actually got on, Chief Yuya got on and offered direction, like boom, boom, boom. And also spoke about the this idea of being connected, right? And so I brought up the point about the fact that we become disconnected to our environment. And so he actually offered even more clarity and said, no, it happens internally as well. So there's an unhinging and a disconnect that happens not just in the physical, but internally. And so it brings us back to our original conversation around at the beginning of this build, um, around the idea of holistic healing and holistics, right? And so we get to see that there's this intricate interconnecting and networking of responsiveness to the environment that the body has, that the mind has. And it affects us in many different ways, and we then in turn affect others. All right, so there's just all of that. And when we think of healing, we could think of healing as a process, right? It's intervention. Kind of like with the student that I shared, I offered some intervention to him so he could repair his lack of peace, because those thoughts that encroached on his experience and in his mind, they affected his form of peace. He moved into a place of fear. And so I offered intervention by saying, do this, do that, just by observing the shift and change in his energy. All right. And there are times that I actually go to the point where I'm teaching and I can see all the shifts. I'm teaching and I'm hitting my points, but I'm seeing every shift in mood, mannerism, behavior, even sometimes like just frequency for the youth that I service and I work with. And we have to be able to do the same with others as well too. So I'm going to pop into the chat. Sister Yafe says sometimes we like to brush it off and say, oh, a spirit just ran through here. And while that may be true, but we create those spirits. Yes, indeed, we do. We do, you know. We do. And that example with the young man, the young boy, although when you call them young boys, and you say tiny people, they are so offended, like, what, tiny? No, that's not right. But yes, it's true. Because we do not want to accept the fact that we created that in the first place. So the objective this evening is to really look at, well, what is healing? Because we've been doing that for the last couple of podcasts this season, just delving into what is this thing? What is that thing? Right? We looked at what is plant-based, what is vegan, what is the body, what is the soul, what is the spirit? Yet, what is healing? So it is that repair, like I said, it is that intervention to get the body, the mind, the spirit back into a place of equilibrium, back to a place of peace and functionality. um, Healing is recovery as well too, right? Healing can be considered recovery as well. For those of you, if you're still in the chat, because I do know it is late, so we're not going to stay on very long. But if you all like this time and you want to, continue chit chatting, I'm all for it. But just share really quickly one time that you have had to go through the process of healing and you realize that that healing actually took place in the mind first. Even, yes, you may have had to take medication, meds, prescription, maybe, or maybe you are a natural healer and your first instinct when something is wrong, or your mate is not well, or you have a family member is not well, or, and when I say a family member, I mean like literal family. So for me, that would be Annie. Or my relatives. If I do have relatives who call and say, "Oh my gosh, this happening or that's happening," and they want a word song from you. They want a little remedy or something, which is beautiful. Um, and sometimes as women, that's one of the things we have to learn to do, is to function from that place where we're always thinking, not how we could, because sometimes we think like we could solve people problems. Not That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying we're natural healers. We're supposed to be mending and dressing the wounds and all of that. So if there's an issue, our very first response should be, "Oh, this works. Boom, let me make this thing right here." All right, so that I can offer healing. So I just think if there's those of you who are still in the chat and wanna share, just quickly share one moment that you've had when you had to go through healing and you realize that healing process, that recovery, right, that repair began in the mind. All right. Um, Part of what my build this evening too was to kind of touch on Raphael again. For those of you who do follow, you follow Anu Life Global Ministries. I have been given the opportunity. It's a beautiful opportunity. That's how I see it, as an opportunity to build and share on the culture of Anu. And so I think it was one of the clubhouse bills. You could actually find it here too. I think it was "Healing is Now" is was the name of the broadcast. "Healing is Now." It's on not my Sovereignty's channel, but it's on Anu Life Global Ministries channel. So check it out. Check it out. And so in there, I gave a story about. Maybe I won't share the story here. Yeah, go over to the Anu Life Global channel and look for "Healing is Now." And on that during that presentation, I actually speak about the angel or angle of Raphael and Raphael's role in the book of Tobit and the power of healing that he offers. But I'm going to go back to Chief Yuya. Chief Yuya was the one who actually offered the inspiration, right? To inspire, to be filled with spirit, right? To be filled with that fire. So, like, his music actually inspired the thought and idea about Raphael as a healing energy, right? And so I dug up and found the story, and the archangel, many people say it's an archangel, call the energy an archangel, but Raphael in Hebrew means Elohim has healed. All right, Elohim has healed, or most of you will know it as God has healed. So there's a direct connection between that energy of Raphael and healing, and that's shared in the story. In the story that I shared, I won't share it here because I want you to go over there and get some of it, and then come back here and be like, "Oh yeah, I made the connection." But for those of you who are interested in, reading a little bit and getting to know more about that energy, The book of Tobit, chapters 5 to 12 will help you. But the book of Tobit is a beautiful read, so we'll read it from, beginning to end. And you really enjoy it. Lots of lessons and cultural expectations that are interwoven in the stories, right? Before I close, because I want to acknowledge that I feel a little bit. I'm excited and I feel like I can keep going. Maybe I shouldn't stop. I'll just keep going. Um, I'll keep going. One of the things that I wanted to talk about too was the dynamics of healing, right? What else? And when we talk about a dynamic, we're talking about the different the different things that need to be in place in order for healing to take place, right? And faith is one of them. Faith is an important part of, or an important dynamic when it comes to healing. And for those of you who are still with us, I appreciate you for listening in and allowing for a podcast to generate some maybe extra energy, a second wind, if maybe, or begin to help you close off your day. For those of you who are closing down at this time. Oh, you're still here. All right, cool. But one of the dynamics of healing is faith, right? And faith calls us to reason with our divine mind. So, the beautiful thing about that statement, calls us. Faith calls us. Faith doesn't show up. You hear people talk about, faith and things showing up in my life. It calls you. So when I think about something being called, I think about, in the Anu way, we talk about attributes, right? Attribute is a name. It's what you're called. And you're called a thing because there are these attributes that are hidden inside of a name. So every time you call a person, you are invoking and awaking something in them. And so the same is true for when you say, oh, a dynamic of healing is faith, and faith calls. It calls us to reason with our divine mind. Hey, you know what? It means that our healing takes place beyond this brain here. Healing takes place beyond even the tinctures that we hold on to. Look, I have a big one here, mullein, because I refuse to be sick. So for those of you who are looking for some mullein or olive oregano, yeah, jump on it. And we also have, I don't even want to share because it's not, the podcast is to bring you closer to wellness. So I don't want you to think like I'm always pushing, go to Sovereign Eats, but jump on our Sovereign Eats website and look for some of the tonics and so on that you may need to support your system, right? But the point I was making is that, healing goes beyond this. And healing goes beyond this because it is faith calling us to reason with our divine mind, a mind it's connected to universal thought. It's beyond this brain right here, right? So it means that our body and the way our body heals and functions, it has to be tethered to a network and a framework that is beyond this earthly plane and this physical two body. And that doesn't mean that we're holding on to and waiting for somebody else to offer us healing. It doesn't. But it does mean that it goes beyond just my lonesome, just me alone, right? If you've ever seen any documentary, so I will. I guess this season is the season for tell the stories and tell how. I like to sit and look at documentaries on how plants communicate and mycelium and the network, the internet, the interconnected connected framework of roots and mycelium underneath the soil. Absolutely mind blowing when you think about it. Because in many cases, if you dig up the soil, you can't see it. You can't see it like roots, right? You can't see it like you would see roots. But these networks almost remind me of the synapses inside of our nervous system. That's when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, you know. And if you want to look at one of those videos, please jump in the comments and share, and I'll be happy to find a link and post it there. But you could also look through the Sovereign Eats channel. There are tons of playlists of not random things, but tons of playlists of some of the areas of study that I really, I like to peek into and dig into. Just, just because. Just because. Aki El says, you gotta have faith, don't confuse it with hope. Yes, this is true. This is true. Don't not confuse it with hope, because if that confusion is there, then you're probably stuck in a space where you're not getting to heal, or the repair is not happening, or you're crashing and burning constantly because it's hope. And when you say that, it made me think of a phrase I always hear people say growing up. In the Caribbean, I would hear people say, on a wing and a prayer, or a hope and a prayer, you know, and yeah, there's faith is very different. Faith is that leaning on divine, right? So there's no hoping and wondering, because hope is like maybe. There's anxiety there. There's fear that it may not happen. Faith is knowing. Faith is a knowing. That's different. It's knowledge. It's not a belief system. It's not based on belief. You know? And when we think about the way the body functions, and I start to make the connections with mycelium and how very much it functions like the nervous system inside of our bodies, that's a knowing. That's based, and Chief has taught us so much. Listen, everything proceeds from a law. So if everything proceeds from a law, even healing itself is functioning off of a law within the universe. We have to know what that law is. We have to know what that law is. And one of the dynamics of that law of healing is faith. It has to be there. It has to be there. Aki El says, "Whoa, interesting. What is interesting? Is it the? Are you talking about the idea of the mycelium and it being connected? And mycelium is really, if you study it, it really focuses on fungi, right? It looks at all of the mushrooms and how they're interconnected and their function, but also how they're connected to plants, you know? I mean, to the point where they influence the relocation and allocation of nutritional nutrient content in the soil, so that it supports the repair and the growth of different plants in an area or a region. I think that is absolutely mind-blowing. It is interesting. It is interesting because it's just like the body. It's like the body healing, right? It's the body healing. Yes, you have a wound here, you have a cut here, you have some, kind of pinch here, whatever, and the body begins to activate all of these, all of the different hormones and, tissue and white blood cells, everything kind of kicks in so that the body can recover, right? It can recover. And so part of that is, how it shifts nutrients around, how it shifts chemicals and enzymes around in the body so that they can function in different ways and work toward our healing. All right. In some cases, that is divine mind. That doesn't require our Satan brain to start thinking about, oh, like, how many of these things do I need? These tinctures. They're helpful, don't get me wrong, you know. But I think there's a part about the body and the way it heals and the way it functions that we have not been able to discover or put our hands on yet. Right? That goes beyond, and I would say that because I have had some healing experiences in my journey that are physical, you know. I can't speak for, I do know that they have been emotional and spiritual ones, but I have not been able to say, oh yeah, it was this cataclysmic experience. I can't say that. But I can say that some of it has probably happened, but on the physical, in terms of my body, I have seen my body heal from thought, from meditation, from affirmation, from working with heat and breath work as a healing modality. Me, Sister Morea, in this physical body here, have seen it, right? And you can listen to our previous season, because our previous season I talk a little bit about some of my pain journey and what that was like. So Sister Yafe says, yes, part of the law is that white blood cells bulk up when the body is threatened. If you have too much, the body is saying something is wrong, right? That's correct. The body is saying something is wrong. And the body is saying something is wrong in a way that we could understand. Um, but that's still another layer of imbalance that we're able to observe several, I don't know, down the line, right? In a sense, because there are other triggers, there are other ways. Some people are able to catch it even before the white blood cells begin. Some people are able to catch those subtle differences or shifts. And maybe it's not before the white blood cells begin to bulk and start going, creating their army. um, you know what I'm going to do? When I go back into this description, I'm going to add, I made reference to a lot of Chief's content and his music. I'll add it. There's also this young man who does skits about just the hormones in the body and the blood, and also other fluids, where they go, what they do, what happens to the egg, how the egg misses the bus, and what happens when the egg misses the bus. It's like very interesting that he should, and the ones that I really pay attention to are the ones that speak about how the blood functions and the hormones, because it's very much inappropriate for him to do anything about any female eggs. Absolutely inappropriate. um Aki Elkara says the plant documentaries, I never watch them unless they are animal documentaries, but that is interesting where plant life is concerned. Yeah, yeah. And I think even when I love the animal shows as well too, like the documentaries as well too, because you get to look at how they function in a community. And I think it's very, very similar. There are all these subtle social, there's hierarchy, there's social class. These things are still there. um, and the way they pool strength when there are gaps or weaker members of the group or the community, how they rearrange things so that way the whole can function and the whole can survive. And I mean, that depends on which animal. Some animals, that's not how they function, and you have to trust how they function. That's a key part of just understanding everything comes from a law, and even their functionality comes from, some sort of law. Um, yeah. For those of you who are listening, I will that you are able to find the book of Tobit and dig into it, and come back to the comment section and share a little bit about, what you pull from there. Another dynamic of healing is um, being open to what cannot be seen. All right, being open to what we cannot see, and what we cannot see is actually what we cannot decipher. And that may just mean because our eyes have not been conditioned to see. Our eyes have not, I mean, think about it. Like a doctor we can walk into a space, and a doctor or a healer or a holistic practitioner can look at our eyes. They can identify when there are issues with the liver. They can look at our tongue. Some people can use um, certain, some people can use the eyes to help indicate where some of the lack of healing is, or some of the, what should we say, illnesses exist. All right. So I think we have to be cognizant of that as well too, just in our own journey in our lives, right? There may be things that we cannot see emotionally and spiritually, and Chief touches on that because he speaks about, I forgot the title of this person who can assess, read the soul. If you do not have someone around you who is like that and has that function and ability, then you have to be open. That's what it means, right? That's a dynamic of healing, not the physical body necessarily, but the spirit body, the emotional body. um, there's also the connection to the creator, and as women, like our connection to the creator comes through our men, right? It comes through the man who is guiding you, leading you in your homestead, or maybe it's your father, depending on how your life state, right? How your life is. So, and in the story of Tobit, again, you see it's through the father's faithfulness that we see some of that connection, right? And we see Hebrew lifestyle and Hebrew culture coming out, right? In terms of like that loyalty. Um, so like, and we're talking about Tobit and how he's relating to his father and the angel, and those in his homestead. But again, as women, though, that connection can be severed if we do not have a masculine authority who is taking leadership and giving us instruction in our journey. If it's not there, then yeah, that's a dynamic of healing that will not be present. And so maybe you'll be able to heal yourself physically, but then there is spiritual healing, there's emotional healing, and all of these different layers, um, especially when we consider holistic, right? If we're talking about healing from a holistic perspective, we're talking about the whole. We're talking about all the different layers and components, but we're also talking about different modalities of healing too that exist. Um, Different modalities of healing that exist. We can, I think because I really want to, I have something prepared for next strong, and I might go live again next strong because this is kind of nice. But I have a list of some of the different, just some suggestions for to support us during this time, right? This, for those of us who are in colder regions, even for those of us who are in warm regions, who like, I was expecting it to be nice up until January. Not so. But I give thanks I give thanks and appreciate the fact that I am in a southern place where it's nicer. It's, I won't say laid back, but it's really nice. It is nice. And it's not always very cold. So I have to show appreciation and gratitude. So let me stop right now. Boop, right there. And say, give thanks. I have a lot of gratitude for being here. But for those of us who are in colder regions or just experiencing cold right now, and maybe there's buildup of mucus and so on in the body, I had a bunch of different ideas that I wanted to share with you all. So I can share a few. Um, Using warm herbs or herbs can be supportive to the system. And again, my audience I know will be um, sisters and women in homesteads, full functioning, balanced homesteads, right? So where there's a woman, there's a man, and then their children. Um, Things like cinnamon and ginger are warming herbs. So you want to make sure you have them, coriander, anise, fennel, and you can cook with them all the time. But you could certainly you could make a soup. I remember a couple years back I did a video, and you might be able to find it on my list of older videos, but I did a video on just soup, making warming soups and infusing a lot of healing herbs and things like even astragalus root and bark inside of the soup, drawing that out first and then layering the seasonings and so on, and making soups that use broth from barks that are healing and barks that help to improve the immune system and balance the immune system, right? So everything that we do, every conversation we have, it will be from this holistic perspective, right? That's why we opened with mind, body, spirit, and we have soul, because we want you to see that every time we have these builds and these conversations and I share, we want to always think about the different layers, right? All of the different components and the different modalities too, because they all affect us in different ways. Baths, right? Making sure that we take baths. Cold baths are important too. Um, Cold baths are important too because they help to snap the circulatory system back into order, right? If you're feeling sluggish and things are slow, metabolism is down, you could take a cold bath. A ginger bath is good too. Ginger baths are really helpful. Um, Ginger baths. I'm going to go into more of this next strong because I think this strong was really about, just thinking about all of the different components and even talking about the dynamics of healing. And so next strong, we could go into more of the different types of foods that we utilize, right? So, but this was great. I enjoy the lives because they tend to be more upbeat. So a lot of the podcasts from here on out will be more upbeat. I'll be sharing a lot more of my own stories, and based on the last podcast, I think I owe you all two stories: a turkey story and I can't remember another story. I have to go back to remind myself. Um, but I have two stories. That I have to share, and I'll make sure that I share them before the Gregorian closes. Which brings me to this before we close. That so I appreciate that I have been given the opportunity to be a part of Anu, and so Chief Yuya, who is in the mix here, I think, still maybe. Chief Yuya actually on his podcast. So if you follow Chief Yuya, you can find his 81st podcast that is called Challenge. It's right here on YouTube. Um, it was uploaded today because I remember saying, oh yeah, you know, like I don't have to go to Spotify to find it. I could just like switch from one YouTube playlist to another. So you can look for Chief Yuya, episode 81 challenge. I was saying coining it the Chiefs challenge. So Chiefs challenge. I just wanted to share here because it's a part of my journey. It's a part of what I'm doing. It's a part of what my Anu family is doing. So I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna talk about it. No shame. Um, I won't go into the details of it. I can because like I have a whole list. I created a chart. Listen, I am not playing. I'm just quiet. I ain't saying nothing, but I'm just doing what I got to do. Um, but the challenge actually is such a beautiful challenge because it looks at different components and layers of ourselves. It's like it's a holistic challenge. That's what I would say, right? So. He breaks down three different levels of each of the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional exercises that he has challenged all of us to do. Everyone, whether you're an ANU member or not, and if you listen to him and or you go over there and you find it and you want to join in, yes, feel free and go into the comments under that video and share, which I'm going to do a little later on, and share what levels of the challenge that you're going to engage in. The physical components include push-ups, walking, walking, and squats. Boop, 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 boop. For all the people like trying to get to peach bottoms. But more importantly, strengthening the legs, strengthening the calves, and just, like going in on yourself, just doing, what is right for the body. All right. What's right for the body. And making sure that the physical body is wholesome. So, it can allow for good spirit to fill it, right? There's also somebody help me in the chat now. Oh my goodness. My book is down there with all of it. But another component, so I said push-ups, walking, squats. Then there is reading. Reading is the mental. And there are 3 layers to that too. You could do 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I mean, I just read. So like that's already, a thing. Let me share with you what I'm reading first. Because I had to pause on one book because it's like, okay. And I actually use my Kindle app for reading. So I'm going to pull up what I'm reading first because I do have a bunch of books that have been just, every time I open, I've been saying hi. So I actually wanted to reread this absolutely amazing book. This one. I wish I could see this screen, but it's not coming up. It's not coming up. It's not coming up. You could probably see them. Let me see. All of Chief's books are in here, actually. I have a bunch of other things too. Where is it? All right. I think I just lost it, but it's this one called the healing light of the Tao. Any book with that goes into healing modalities or speaks about forms of healing, I want to continue reading. So that's one of the books that I wanted to get through. It's a big one. It's a chunky one, but I've gone through some of it before. Another one is Gospel Woman. It's gone. The screen is gone. Gospel Woman is another one. Of course, I think I shared earlier with someone too that I wanted to reread again, Grasping the Root of Divine Power by Chief Yuya. It's this one right here. Boom. All right, so this one, Light of Tao. I don't know if you all could see it. I don't know if you could see it. And thank goodness that's all you can see. Um, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there because I could share a few more. So reading is a part of it too. Then there is the challenge includes so that's what I intend to read during this time. Don't know how much of it I'm gonna get through, but I do know I am going to be doing 30 minutes. Um, there is letter writing. He calls them love letters. So of course I have to cheese. I start cheesing like, okay. So and it's funny because if you have ever taken gone to Sadulu House and taken any of the spiritual training courses, you'll find that one or two of the activities actually asks for you to create a letter of gratitude to someone, and then there's another letter. So I just found it interesting that the writing down of just our thoughts and our emotions, or what we want to express to another person, sometimes is not always received, and you have to be able to express what you are willing to write down. You have to be willing to express it verbally as well too. So it's not lopsided, but there's an important piece there, in writing down those thoughts, that we sometimes don't get to express to others. And that's a beautiful part of the challenge. So that's something that you can hold on to. And maybe I should give it the respect. And excuse me, my stuff's falling all over the place. I felt bad just going through it without like actually giving the details, but I want you all to go to the challenge podcast and listen for yourself, and go to the website too, because on the chiefyuya.com website, he has the list. He shares in the podcast that he has the list of all of the challenges, all of the requirements for the challenge laid out. All right, so I touched on the reading. I touched on the love letters, and he gives a breakdown for the monthly amount and the daily amount as well. Journaling daily is also a part of it, and creating a battle plan for 2023, right? So, and I'm sharing it because these are all things that I am engaged in, and it's exciting to be going through a checklist and working on a challenge along with my ALIs. I really appreciate that a lot. Oops, sorry. That's me trying to take the light out. But for those of you who are in the chat and you've been hanging with me, thank you so much. I really appreciate this late evening build and you all staying and just chilling for a little bit. I'm going to close out and get to my journaling. And, this is actually technically the beginning of our second day, because the days are marked by the setting and the setting of the sun. So from the setting of the sun to the setting of the sun, that's a day. So technically this is day 2. So I could get a move on some of my day 2 writing, and maybe I get some squats in before I go to bed. But thank you all. This season has been very different. I really enjoy building and being free in that space. I see a lot of people shouting out challenge. For those of you who follow us and connect with us on Yam Shishi, I will be presenting for Yam Shishi tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock or 7:30, and that would be an Anu Fellowship build. So join us, and I think part of my conversation would be around us sharing some of the decisions that we have made about which one of the levels of the challenge that we're going to be doing, and how we're keeping track of what we're doing every day, what methods that you're using to keep track. This was really great, Bill. Give thanks, Chief Yuya. Thank you for being in space. I really appreciate all that you do in so many ways. You offer so much guidance and your grace, like yeah. It's really, really appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sister Yafe, for being in space, and thank you, Aki El Karar. El Karar says, with Chief talking about technology and stuff, I want to buy Chip War. What is Chip War? Oh, it's a book. A Chip War. Okay, okay, okay. All right, peace, everyone. Rest well.